Hello, everyone. We're doing the last two sections from last week that we didn't finish. Although it's hard for me to remember, perhaps we did part of it. It seems like maybe we did part of it, maybe it's because I prepared for it. In any case, this is what I prepared. And the emphasis today, aside from the simple meaning of the text of Mishlei, of Proverbs, is on Talmudic interpretation. So I've brought exclusively Talmudic interpretations today. And let's give it a go. Megan, you want to read for us 24, 14 to 20?
Like clouds, like clouds, wind, but no rain, is a man who boasts of gifts not given. Through forbearance, a ruler may be won over, a gentle tongue can break bones. If you find honey, eat only what you need, lest surfeiting yourself, you throw it up. Visit your neighbor sparingly, lest he have his surfeit of you and loathe you. Like a club, a sword, a sharpened arrow is a man who testifies falsely against his fellow. Like a loose tooth and an unsteady leg is a treacherous support in time of trouble. Disrobing on a chilly day, like vinegar on natron, is one who sings songs to a sorrowful soul.
Okay, singing songs to sorrowful souls. How might we sum up this particular section? I think it's all of the same topic. I guess most of Proverbs is the same topic of interpersonal relationships, but this is interpersonal relationships. This is the how do you act on a regular basis? How do you live your life with others? So let's take it from the top and see what we understand, what we don't. There's some tricky things here, but let's take it from the top. Um, Clouds and wind with no rain. It's kind of like clouds in the wind. It's not that the wind brings the clouds, but when you're expecting, there's a windy day, you're expecting the clouds, anticipating in dry weather, a cloud that comes, but no rain comes. That is similar to, or we learn from that, it's like a man who boasts of gifts and gives none, right? Somebody's always talking big. End of the year, December 31st, our inboxes are filled with pleas from nonprofit organizations now more than ever. Da da da. First, of all, I want to thank all of you for giving during the year. It's an important thing, and all of you are so generous, each in your own way, and I truly appreciate that. But in reflecting upon this, I couldn't stop it, couldn't prevent myself from remembering those individuals over the years who basically they needed attention. They wanted my time. They wanted my presence, especially when I traveled to a city in the old days in the United States, raising money here for things in Israel. And in the end, there was nothing forthcoming. And trying to tell myself, and not say to myself, well, this is like a cloud that comes with no rain, but this is what somebody needed. It's not easy when you spend you have limited time, a day or two in one city, and somebody takes up a few hours of your time with promises of big gifts or yeah, can connect you to the foundation, da da da. So that's what popped into my mind. But I think each of us have experiences with people who we have expectations, and the expectations are not met. Um, okay, and now when we're interacting with people of power, we have the choice of of how we go about it. Do we do it defiantly or do we do it with soft words? The Hebrew phrase from, is it also from Mishle, Sasha? Uh, Divrei Chachamim benachat nishmaim, that every child learns in God. I think it's either from Kohelet or from Proverbs. I think the um, words of the words of wise people are heard gently. In other words, saying things gently more than shouting them. That seems to be the next thing. And this term here, which I feel like perhaps we discussed already last time, this idea that a gentle tongue can break bones, right? You don't need to be, it's in Kohelet, sorry, it's in Ecclesiastes, okay. And which brings us to the honey. And we had honey before. We had a few weeks ago. Within the last few weeks, we had honey was used, maybe in the same section of for the Hezekiah collection. Don't remember. This too, honey being something which is nutritious in their eyes, being something good. But of course, if you eat too much of it, Les would say you get a sugar rush, right? Your blood sugar goes up too much at one time. But that, of course, is only the metaphor with which to understand the same thing. When you show up at your neighbor's house too much, the same thing will happen. It might be a little bit is good, but too much is too good. And the play on words here, or the lead word of which is surfety or surfeit, is yizbah, to be satisfied from, to be nourished from. Okay, before we go on, any words about this, about any comments or thinking about this section? Okay, everybody's quiet today. We're waiting for the big parties tonight. Is that what's going on? Resting. Or do I just not have any sound?
Making our resolutions.
You're making your resolutions. Okay. All right. Dan?
Well, I just think I had looked ahead when downloading it, and all of these. First of all, the images are great. They're fresh. I'm finding so, and the sentiments are pretty straightforward. And looking ahead to Talmudic stuff, it's not. So, just
Oh, so you're looking ahead. Okay. All right.
yeah.
So why don't we just finish this section, then we'll go to the Talmudic stuff. I was going to do maybe Babylonian, the Sanhedrin first, and then the other one afterwards, but we might as well just go ahead now. So just finally the same words again, a club, a sword, a sharpened arrow, these weapons. That's what these are like when you testify falsely, when you speak falsely, and everything here now going on is about speaking as well, and things that you depend on like a tooth or a leg when they're loose or they're unsteady. That's what support from another person might be. You may expect it, but you need to know, I guess, see ahead that it's not always going to be, you're not always going to have a relationship. It's talking about your relationship with the other person. And then this final thing, including, so just natron or natron, however you express it, is a base, while as vinegar is an acid. And so they neutralize each other. They're both used in ancient time in removing stains, in laundering. And so when you try to use the natron, you see natron here, it's in Ibn Ezra talks about it as clay, I think. But whatever everybody talks about, whatever it is exactly, whatever is used, it's both are used for the same thing, but when using together, they neutralize each other. And so does taking off your clothes on a chilly day, right? You have clothes, but why are you taking them off? And those two things are similar to, they just make it worse, right? Those two things, which could help you, that's like singing a song to a sorrowful soul. In other words, it's worse than not singing at all. Better you should shut up than to sing to a sorrowful soul. That's the advice here. We don't have to accept it necessarily. But that's what I got out of this. That's with the help of Fox. Okay, so why don't you go ahead with, unless somebody has words on something to say on the simple meaning here? Okay, had we done this last week, 2 weeks ago?
No.
No, okay, all right, wasn't it? All right, so then, Dan, since you're roaring to go here with little Talmud here, Sanhedrin, look at A, please.
From the Mishnah, how do the judges examine the witnesses? They bring them into a room in the courthouse and intimidate them. And they take all the people outside and they leave only the eldest of the witnesses to testify first. and they say to him, say how exactly you know this litigant owes money to that litigant, as the plaintiff claims. If he said, the defendant said to me, it's true that I owe the plaintiff, or if he says, so-and-so said to me that the defendant owes the plaintiff, the witness has said nothing and his testimony is disregarded. It's not valid testimony unless he says, the defendant admitted in our presence to the plaintiff that he owes him 200 dinars.
Okay, the difference being a general statement or hearsay or a specific statement. The specificity of the statement is what makes it. Now, this is just an example of how you check witnesses. It could be for other crimes as well. Two witnesses have to be there in order to have to testify, and they're grilled by the Beit Din, by the judges. Intimidating, you got a little stuck there on the word. Yes, the idea is to intimidate them, not so they don't speak up, but so that they're very, very careful with their words. All right. So this is just an example of how important words are and how much words matter. And this is taken from the Mishnah. And I skipped around. I guess I didn't put three dots. There's after. Go ahead, do this one, and then it goes on longer, but I want to get to the Talmud part. Go ahead.
And afterward, they bring in the second witness and examine him. If their statements are found to be congruent, the judges then discuss the matter. And from where is it derived that when the judge leaves the courtroom, he may not say, I deem you exempt and my colleagues deemed you liable, but what can I do? As my colleagues outnumbered me and consequently you were deemed liable. About this it is stated, you shall not go as a talebearer among your people. From Leviticus, and it says, one who goes about as a talebearer reveals secrets, but one who is of a faithful spirit conceals a matter.
Okay, and I brought this section only because it really quoted a different part of Proverbs. We didn't really need this to understand what's going forward. But now the Gemara, that is the second layer of the Talmud, discusses, and the discussion here is far greater, but I just brought what concerns our verse here. Go ahead.
And in the Gemara part, what do we say to them? Rav Yehuda says that this is what we say to them. It is stated, as clouds and wind without rain, so is he who boasts himself of a false gift. Okay, citation. Rava said to him, if so, this can say, 7 years there was a famine, but over the craftsman door it did not pass, is a folk saying. Rather, Rava said that we say this verse to them, as a hammer and a sword and a sharp arrow, so is a man who bears false witness against his neighbor.
Okay, I brought this because you've got Rav Yehuda and Rava discussing an ancient tradition, right, from the previous centuries about what it is how do judges prepare the witnesses or get them to talk about it? How do they warn them? How do they intimidate them? That's what this is talking about. And so you've got two Amoraim, two rabbis from the Talmudic period, from the Gemara, who are debating with each other. And there's a second layer to this as well, but this was enough for me here. And one uses our verse from that we did first about the fact that clouds and wind, no rain. It's like a person who gives go. So Rava says to him, that doesn't work, because he could answer not with a verse, but like a verse, a folk saying. He could answer, oh, that's like 7 years of famine. Didn't bother me. I'm a craftsman. What do I care if it rains or not? Right? That's the kind of, in other words, it's a playfulness using it, playfulness using in this discussion, which leads me to believe that the verses are secondary. Right. In other words, they're saying, what can we say from our tradition, wisdom tradition? One says, why do we say this? He says, well, no, they'll say that because that's not a metaphor that works with people that aren't dependent upon rain, which, by the way, was the case in Babylonia. Babylonia in general, the Jews of Babylonian Jews, rain was not an issue. The water came from the canals for agriculture. Also, they didn't own land, I don't think. But yes, Les.
What's the significance of it, saying the craftsman's door is bypassed?
Because a craftsman doesn't need the rain. Famine doesn't affect a craftsman. Famine affects a farmer.
But the craftsman has to eat.
Yeah, but this is folk tales. You don't get too detailed. You don't get into it too much. That's why I say this is, I don't know how serious this is. It's kind of like, what might we say to them? But the truth is he brings a better verse. And maybe the whole thing is staged to bring the better verse. It's the dialectic of the Talmudic discussion, right? Look, what are we going to take out of this for what particular case? And the truth of the matter is that the second verse that's put in bold above they emboldened is a better one for this particular context. Anyway, that's what
Saying
we
that
have
the
in saying.
hammer and the sword and the sharp arrow will injure the person if they perjure themselves?
Is that
Is that
oh
what
is that
the hammer?
no, that's what they can do. That's how destructive they can be.
Oh, okay. That's not what they're not going to get injured by perjuring themselves.
I don't think so. No, no, they're going to injure other people, right? Other people will be hurt. In other words, words matter.
Oh.
A very, very an ornate way of saying that words matter. Yeah.
So, and I also noticed that all of the hymns, it just brought to my mind that women couldn't be witnesses.
Correct. Although there are cases that women are witnesses, though, and I don't remember exactly what it is. It's not for weddings, according to halakha. I seem to remember there are cases where women are, but by and large, no. I'd have to look it up, but by and large, you're right. Yeah. But even if they could, by the way, Rabbi Malka, it would still say him.
Would
You
it?
know that. Okay. All right. Yes, Dan.
Just one thing, looking back over the images and what we just read, most of them use, not all of them, use the feeling of physical pain as, or discomfort as being associated with these bad activities. So that makes it a really sharp lesson, literally.
Yeah. Physical, because the whole section is really talking about speech, isn't it? I mean, it's interpersonal behavior, but so much of it is about speech. As we're going to see, the next section is as well. Yeah.
So were the cases of a Beit Din kept secret?
In other words, the what was being litigated was not secret, but the kishkes of the decision were supposed to be secret. Yeah.
So the defendant never knew that they didn't know whether it was a split decision or whether it was a majority decision or whether it was a unanimous decision. They just knew what a decision.
I think so. That's what were you going to ask?
The deliberations were secret, and there was the discussion that they had amongst themselves.
Yeah, amongst the judges. Yeah, the judges amongst themselves was secret according to Sanhedrin. Yeah. Which is a little bit like, I mean, we have, what do we have, Supreme Court? We have what they give us. Right? I don't know what they do in the room. Don't think I get together in the room afterwards. I don't know what they do exactly.
Yeah, but each justice can write why they voted the way they did and can argue against the other one. Yeah,
but they can also not.
But their vote is recorded. The vote is recorded.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, vote is recorded, and also somebody's got to give a position, at least the majority. Okay, all right. So another section, Dan, from the Talmud, from Masechet Chagiga. This is a famous. I brought this one. It's not so. It doesn't help us so much in Proverbs, but this is a famous passage from the Talmud. From time to time, I'll bring something famous because it's kind of in do you have a working knowledge of Jewish literature? This source comes up quite a bit, especially those who are interested in Kabbalah and mysticism. Even though Kabbalah is a term for Jewish mysticism of the medieval period, there's not Kabbalah in the Talmud, but there is mysticism in the Talmud, and there's reference to it. This is one of the famous references to it. Go ahead, Dan.
The sages taught, four entered the orchard, Pardes, and that is dealt with the loftiest secrets of Torah, and they are as follows: Ben Azai and Ben Zoma, Acher, should that be Elisha ben Abuah?
Yeah, it should be Elisha ben Abuah. Yeah.
Okay, and Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva said to them, when, upon your arrival in the upper worlds, you reach pure marble stones, do not say water, water, although they appear to be water, because it is stated, he who speaks falsehood shall not be established before my eyes.
Okay, just because we're reading this, just the inner logic of this. Akiva's the senior of the rabbis here, right? And he already has some knowledge in this. He's saying, don't say the things that don't say the things that occur to you, because what you're seeing is not necessarily what it is, right? There's things going on here that you're not necessarily going to understand. That's how I read this usage of the proof text from Psalms, right? It looks like water, but no, it's marble. It's something different. Okay.
Ben-Azai glimpsed at the divine presence and died. And with regard to him, the verse states, precious in the eyes of the Lord is the death of his pious ones. Ben-Zoma glimpsed at the divine presence and was harmed. And with regard to him, the verse states, have you found honey? Eat as much as is sufficient for you, lest you become full from it and vomit it.
And hence my bringing of it here. It's a rather obscure proof to use from the fact that he saw too much. His soul vomited, I guess, right?
Acher chopped down the shoots of saplings. Rabbi Akiva came out safely.
Okay, so kitzetz benitiot is something you hear from time to time. Literally, it means to chop down saplings, which a potential tree, a potential or things that have been planted. Yeah, it doesn't. It could be a larger tree also, but when it's something comes from agriculture, you do yourself harm, right? You chop down the trees that are going to give you fruit afterwards. But this is Acher. His name is Elisha ben Abuya. We spoke of him a few weeks ago. I remember I mentioned the book
Milton Steinberg.
Milton Steinberg's book As a Driven Leaf about Elisha ben Abuya, and so the idea is, in other words, he usually the medieval commentators say he uprooted the mitzvot. The nitiot here are the mitzvot. He was so smart for himself. He became so wise with rhetoric and logic of Greek philosophy, whatever he was studying. He undid the Torah. Too much knowledge, too much secular knowledge, we should say, undid his knowledge of Torah or his practice of Torah, and he became a heretic. So from this story onward, kitzetz benitiot is a term for somebody who is kofer bi, or who is heretical, a Jewish heretic. Yeah.
Is that the one that they said that he left Judaism? He was a heretic?
Yes, yeah, that's Elisha ben Abuya, who's mostly referred to in the Talmud that we have as Acher, the other guy, the one whose name we shall not mention, right? But it just says Acher, the other. Yeah, actually, in the one who's called Oto Haish, that man, that's a term for Jesus in rabbinic literature. And I can't find my copy, but my teacher and friend Avigdor Shenan wrote a book called Oto Haish about Jesus in Aggadic and Midrashic literature. Can't find my copy. And now's the time I need it in my life. I didn't need it when I gave me a signed copy. Okay. All right. Anything on this before we go on?
So why did Rabbi Akiva come out safely? What did he do that was different than all the other three?
It doesn't say, and there's no Talmud on this, right? This is a Braita. There's an early tradition, so we don't really know, other than it's to say that he had the capacity. I think what's inferred from the story, the others weren't ready for it, and he had the capacity. And in general, to say there are four kinds of people you want to delve into mystery. You should know: number one, you might die. Number two, you might get hurt. Doesn't say how he got hurt. You may be paralyzed. You may have a stroke. I don't know. You may, Number three, you go out to Tarbut Ra, to bad culture. That's, I'm translating literally to, you'll stray from the way, the derech, right? As Orthodox Jews say today, from the way. Number four, you might be like Rabbi Akiva. Are you Rabbi Akiva that you can delve into this and remain whole, right? So it's the rabbis of the Talmud were not crazy about mysticism. When they mention it, it's kind of to keep them at a distance. There's another kind of mysticism that you find in the Talmud that's mentioned is Yordei Merkava, those that have gone down to the chariot, which really means they've gone up to the chariot. It's it's a way of an idiomatic way of language of saying the opposite, right? Somebody who we call it lashon sagi nahor, somebody who is blind, we call him somebody who has great light. Has it's an opposite way of speaking, I guess. Maybe superstitious. In any case, and that has to do with some sort of meditation of holding the head between the legs and breathing. I had a class once with Professor Moshe Lidell, and I have to say, one of the foremost experts in Kabbalah, in Jewish, in general, in Jewish mysticism, Hebrew University. And I don't think I understood anything in that class. It was in rabbinical school. He did not speak clearly. I had no background in this. I had little interest in it, and I got almost nothing out of it. Yeah. There you go.
And
See, sometimes I have those stories, not the great stories. Yes, Robin.
the Pardes was, I see, they translate it as great Torah knowledge. I always thought the Pardes was like this, like being in the third heaven or going
So
to
I,
the physical
this is the Davidson translation, I think, or Stein. Maybe it's the translation based on Steinsaltz. I don't know. Pardes literally
paradise, right?
is the same word gives us paradise, but it's an orchard. Pardes is a loan word from Persian, and because paradise is like an orchard, we imagine it as this beautiful garden, right? The Garden of Eden. Today in modern Hebrew, Pardes is an orchard. In the last 120 years, 30 years, it's been used. But also people use it as and I don't know when this came in. It's an acronym. Rashi Tevot acronym. Yeah, an acronym for Pshat, Remez, Drash, and Sod. The simple meaning of the text, the hinted meaning, the homiletic meaning, and the secret meaning, right? It's 4 different levels of Torah study. I don't know when that's not what's meant here in the Talmud. And again, you hear, this is the kind of stuff that you hear a lot from people who are in all sorts of general Jewish knowledge courses. I'm not good for that. You got to stick with me for a few years to get a picture of something. Okay.
So the Pardes was, when they went to the Pardes, where did they go? They went to their mind about
I think it was a meditative state.
Like a trance?
Yeah, they did it like have you been with Kabbalists before or yeah, so there's practical Kabbalah, which is a form of meditation, where you do certain things like putting your head between your legs, in certain positions. And I think they went there to go group meditation. I mean, those of us that have done that before, we know you have a different feeling, a different place to be. It depends on your level of practice. But again, this is not the stuff that I've really taken an interest in over the years. I've been swept into it from time to time. But that's it. Okay, let's go on then. Les, why don't you read for us 21 to 28, please?
If your enemy is hungry, give him bread to eat. If he is thirsty, give him water to drink. You will be heaping live coals on his head, and God will reward you. That doesn't make any sense. Why is it putting coals on his head to do those things?
Okay, so coals on the head is an idiom. I had to look it up as well. Some people connect it to a particular custom in Egypt, where if somebody was caught stealing, part of his process of repenting was to come before the sheriff or the leader, the king, whatever, with a thing of hot coals on his head, balancing it. It wasn't the coals directly on his head, if I understand correctly. It was some sort of a bowl with coals. Fox says nothing like it. It means to humiliate somebody. It means you want to get somebody really good. The way to do it is not to be mean to them, right? To be kind to them, and that's the most in your face you could be about it. And that is what God wants you to do. God doesn't want you to shout back and humiliate the person. God wants you, if you have a big business and you're being picketed by the union and they're being nasty, order a catering truck for them. I think I've seen that scene in a number of movies or TV. I certainly didn't make it up myself, but how to be kind to the person who's yeah. It's something I've tried to do in recent years, not as successful, but um, so a
Are
recent.
you winning them over with kindness? Is that the whole idea?
Yes, I think so. Well, here though it says that's the best. That's it. Almost feels like here the best revenge you can get is kind of because you're not winning them over. You're winning the crowd over.
Hmm.
Um, I tried to do something, and these are things that when I was, revisiting my times in Israel, I was with the Israel AIDS Task Force. They thought I was a different kind of a person. It was a different world that I was in there because I was there coming to help out, and they were just so welcome that I could help out. But in other places where I thought I was helping out, other people thought I was ruining the picture because I was, there was a certain hierarchy, there was a sexism that so in the activism in order to get women ordained, that so I wasn't welcome amongst the establishment because why am I rocking the boat? When it came to other things, certainly when it came to LGBTQ stuff, but um, uh, recently we had this showing of No Other Land, and there was one Jewish guy there. You may remember those that were there who just couldn't be quiet. He just kept staying. He stood up and he went on and on and on. And at some point, I just said to him, I said, look you've said enough. I asked you to have an open mind. You've made your point. There's other people who want to speak to you, but I want you to know, and this is me trying to take this seriously, but I want you to know I'm really impressed that you came today, that you came to see this, even though you know that you have a very different view of this. You were open enough to come to this. That shut him up. I don't think I was manipulating in a cynical way. It occurred to me to do that. And I need to do that kind of stuff more often. Unlike, say, those that were when we showed that movie at the Methodist Church. I think Eileen, maybe you were there, and those two women from Stand With Us from Palm Desert came, and they were just totally obnoxious. And at some
Right.
point, I stood up in front of them. I said, "This is not your activity. It's not Stand With Us. Now you need to be quiet and listen to everybody else." There was no kindness in that approach. I totally lost it with them. But I didn't totally lose. I didn't raise my voice. Anyway,
So being going back to the sort of literal here, I'm thinking of, Gaza and all that. It's sort of like you can win the PR battle, which of course Israel didn't do, try to win the PR battle in terms of feeding people in Gaza. And so they lost the PR battle.
well, but that's what they were trying to do, wasn't it? With that organization, what was it called? The government, da 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 something.
Yeah, but right, but that was,
So that's what they were trying to do, though, right?
I think that, well, I, I guess so. They thought that might mollify people, although it was very
Yeah.
ineffective.
Yeah, no, I realize, but yeah, well, you and I saw through it. Or Matt, I think both of us saw. Other people saw through it. We see that all the time. Those kinds of optics. Um, I think of it as European leaders of European nations and how they interact with Trump. In the beginning, they were defiant for the first 3 days around, and then realized it's much easier just to throw a big banquet for him. You know, give him an airplane. Okay. All right, let's go on.
Okay. A north wind produces rain, and whispered words a glowering face. Dwelling in the corner of a roof is better than a contentious woman in a spacious house. We've heard this before.
Right. This is quoted. This is already like in chapter 21 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like cold water to a parched throat is good news from a distant land. Like a muddied spring, a ruined fountain, are the righteous fallen before the wicked. It is not good to eat much honey, nor is it honorable to search for honor. Like an open city without walls is a man whose temper is uncurbed.
Yeah. A number of things jumbled up together there, right?
Yeah, but didn't we read these like
Mhm.
many chapters ago?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it won't be the first time that because it's an anthology, it's a collection, it collects whole pieces, and nobody did that editing that we would do today, or maybe not. Today would just be put in different paragraphs or different chapters, whatever, and there'd be a footnote saying, as is Fox's note here, we did this already. If you want comments in this, go back to page whatever, right? Yeah, but yeah, so this is very makes sense to an anthology. Um, this idea of the north wind produces rain is an interesting thing. In Israel, it's not north winds that produce rains. It's west winds, westerly winds, winds coming in from the west, yeah, coming in from the west,
Yeah.
off of the ocean, like California mostly, right? I guess
North
we can
wind would
get
be a
north.
Santa Ana almost.
What's that?
North wind would be like a Santa Ana's off the desert or off.
No, north wind would be off of north of Israel.
Okay.
It would be a cold wind. That's just not how the weather goes. So there's two ways to go about this, I think. Fox says when it comes to these kind of folk sayings, geography doesn't matter. Okay, that's one way of doing it. That's like me saying when we get to a difficult text, well, those are different sources, right? That's kind of what Professor Greenberg used to call to cut the Gordian knot, right? He taught me that term, to cut the Gordian knot. Um, but to me, this feels like a folk saying from someplace else. Now, in other words, I don't know that we have. If there was another folk saying from a different ancient Near Eastern thing, then Fox certainly knows that material. I don't know it, but that's what this feels like to me. That this is just taken from another place, much in the same way the this folk saying from the Talmud was taken from another place. It's what people say, and the interesting thing here, of course, is to, how do you incorporate into sacred texts although our traditions from other worlds, and even when we don't have a document that says this is from another world. That's what this northern wind produces rain says to me. Um, okay. Anything else on the simple context? So I want to look now, so focus for a moment here on like water from a parched throat. I think that's what we're going to. No, we're going to do a few things now. So Dan, we'll go back to you for the number A from Masechet Megillah. The context here, of course, is towards second half of the book of Esther, where Esther has invited Achashverosh and Haman to a feast in order she's going to plead for his life, and then he gets into trouble, whatever. But the question is, if Esther knows that Haman hates her, hates the Jews, why is she inviting him into his house? Go ahead, into her house, into her table, her banquet.
If it seemed good unto the king, let the king Haman come this day to the banquet I have prepared for him. The sages taught, why did Esther seek to invite Haman to the banquet? Rabbi Elazar says, she hid a snare for him, as it is stated, let their table become a snare before them. From Psalms.
Okay, in the context of Psalms, it's a plea for someone who's being persecuted by his enemies. So may they mess up at their table, whatever that might mean there, but it's taken out of context and say, in other words, she laid a trap for him. And why does it make sense though? Because what do you do at the table? You drink. It's a mishteh. It's not just having a light meal. It's having a banquet. Go ahead.
Rabbi Yehoshua says, she learned to do this from her father's house, as it is stated, if your enemy be hungry, give him bread to eat.
Well, so she took this as halacha, right? From her father's house, meaning from her Jewish tradition.
Rabbi Meir says, in order to keep him close, so that he would not take counsel and rebel.
Right. I added to keep him close there because it felt like to, keep your enemies close, that kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. Right. If she doesn't invite him, then he'll be off doing some mischief someplace else. Okay. B.
Rabbi
Did you want to say something?
I'm sorry?
Did you want to say something about the previous?
I was just thinking trying to think whether the citation from Proverbs was consistent with what original sense of the proverb, the thing from Proverbs was. Is it a stratagem, or is it just being, in context of Proverbs, just being a good person?
No, in Proverbs, I think it's a stratagem.
Okay.
Which is also to be a good person because God likes it. Here, she's reading it literally. That's what you do. You know,
Okay.
without, I think, yeah, I think that's why I said she's learning halacha. Learning halacha.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Rabbi Shimon ben Patzi said, the rains are withheld only due to the sin of those who speak slander. As it is stated, the north wind brings forth rain, but a backbiting tongue, an angry countenance.
Yeah. I don't know. North wind also is perhaps a hidden tzafon meets a phone hidden. Yeah. Not sure I understand it entirely. Other than, oh, I give you another. You're talking about back by wind. I can quote something. That's what sometimes it feels like. Okay. And finally,
From where do we know that bathing is prohibited on Yom Kippur? Rav Yitzchak said, it can be derived from here, as cold water on a weary soul, so is good news from a far country.
I don't
so
understand that.
so in Yoma, which is the tractate that deals with Yom Kippur, one of the things they talk about are the Chamesh Za'inuim, the 5 ways of making yourself uncomfortable. And bathing is one of them. But of course, there's no verse that says that. You know, you could at some you understand a fast. Okay, we can that there's a lot of base text for that, but that you're not allowed to put oil on your body or that you're not allowed to wash your body on Yom Kippur. So they're reaching. There's a number of other things that they reach from. This is just happens to be the one verse that was taken out of context in order to provide a proof text for that. In other words, cold water on a weary soul is a good thing. It wakes you up. It feels good. It's refreshing. Not supposed to do that on Yom Kippur. Don't be refreshed. Just kind of sit in your sins. Be miserable. Okay. Um,
Could you go just back to B again
yeah.
and compare it to the text it comes from? Because I'm just not getting a connection between let's see, how can I say this? The logic is evading me in the Talmud.
Well, first let's double check to see if we get the logic in the text in Proverbs. Let's try that. So north wind produces rain. Ruach tzafon techolel geshem. I think as kind of meaning it's a sure thing. If it's a north wind, you're going to get rain. I think that's kind of what it's hinted at, even though that doesn't reflect the meteorological reality of the land of Israel. Ufanim nizamim lashon sata. The same thing's going to happen. Well, it starts with angered a face that shows anger, glowering, an angry face. Maybe
It sounds like a hefer,
what?
because here it's just like the whispered words cause the glowering face. But in Hebrew, doesn't it more seem like the glowering face?
Yeah, but we have that a lot in the poetic way. Say, but I happen to agree with you in this way. I think it's kind of like saying in the same way that a north wind is obviously going to bring rain, same way a glowering face obviously means there were words spoken in secret.
It refers to backbiting, though, in the commentary. Backbiting tongue and angry countenance.
Yeah, so the lashons, yeah, but the backbiting is added. The simple meaning of seter just means hidden or whispered. But I think the innuendo is that it's gossiping. Let's see if we have any enlightenment from. No, I don't even know where it is. All right, I don't know. I don't think I have anything else. The rains are withheld only due to the sin of those who speak something.
I mean, gossip fits both of those. Gossiping. Gossip is usually bad.
Yeah.
And it's whispered.
And also, it's in the context of an angry countenance. It means there's something negative going on. I don't know, Dan. I think perhaps just because both things are mentioned in the same,
Mm.
the rains are withheld only due to the sin of those who, you were looking for why in a section that, oh, Tanit has to do, the major part of Tanit is not about all the laws of fasting. Tanit means fast, but the public fast that was called for when there were no rains in the fall, and
Mm.
the Torah is brought into the street and public prayer and that kind of stuff. So I didn't look up the entire context there, but I would imagine the entire context is what are the reasons we don't have rain? One of them is because of gossip, right?
Mm.
And they're just looking for a verse that has both things inside. I think that would be it.
Okay.
Mm.
Um, okay, just not to belabor it, but okay, I'm comparing the two translations. In the original text, the two clauses are connected with an and, suggesting that one is reinforcing the other. But where it's quoted in the Talmud, the translation uses a but, suggesting that they are to be contrasting.
Because the Vav can
And
be
Love
either
could be
and or
either
but.
or.
yeah, and in context of Talmud, it sounds like Rabbi Shimon ben Pazi is intending to make use of the as contrasting statements.
Which means
I
that my
would translate
interpretation
the
would not
love
work.
as
Yeah, so there's a, well, use a word we had earlier. There's an incongruence between what the Talmud's saying, or the way Talmud's presented to us, and the way the translation presents the verse originally.
Let me go back to the Talmud, see if I can.
so if you change the vav instead of having it translated as and but translated as and, then it's congruous with what Mishle was saying.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So one translator's using it to reinforce a different sense than the other is.
Well, I often do that when I'm translating a rabbinic text. I'll change the translation because otherwise the shot translation of the 21st century doesn't make sense with the Talmud. They understood it differently. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no thing. But let me go back to the Hebrew or the Aramaic of Tanit and see if we can figure it out. Tanit. Amar Rav Chisda, Ein Hakshamim Netzrin, right? Rav Chisda says the only reason that the rains are withheld only due to Ela Bishvil Bitul Trumot Masrot, because people have not given the tithing to the Levites and the gifts to the Kohanim. Shenemar, and then it gives a verse, it gives a proof text from Job. Okay, my mashma, what does that mean? Tana devei Rabbi Yishmael, bishvil dvarim shetziviti etchem b'yimot hachama v'lositem. Because the things that I have commanded for you to do in the days of the summer, because that's when you do the harvest, they will be stolen from you in the days of the winter. In other words, you won't get your rain. All right, payback. Now we go. Amar Rav Shimon ben Pazi. Rav Shimon ben Pazi says, Einak shamim ne'atzarin ela bishvil misaprei lashon hara. The rains are withheld only due to those who speak slander or lashon hara, as it is written, Ruach Safon techolel geshem, ufanim nizamim lashon sater. The only reason it's here, the only reason it's here is because the but doesn't mean anything here. The only reason it's brought here is because it's a verse that happens to have gossip and rain in it. That's the only reason. Yeah, yeah. Sometimes it's just a silly thing like that. And as I said before, there's a long list of things. The rains are Rabbi Salah said. Rabbi Salah says due to impudent people, and there's a verse from Jeremiah, and so on and so forth. It's one of those Talmudic things where nobody has. It's not about the real reason. It's about how do we connect our current situation with our scripture? How do we do that? That's something you do. That's culture. That's what you do for life. That's a sacred conversation, so to speak. It's kind of what we do in a Torah trek, right? We could just go hiking and enjoy nature, right? But if I want to have some added value for Ora Midbar, let's do it. Let's have that conversation in nature along with Jewish literature, that kind of a thing. It's I mean, that's where I've taken my lead.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else, folks?
Mm.
Well, may it be a safe and a good New Year celebration for everybody. We will be celebrating on Interstate 5 with with Yael and her two kids driving down from where we are now in the Bay Area. And we'll see everybody at next new class next week. Not next week. Not next week. Yes, next week. Yeah. Next Thursday. New class on Tobit. I think we put out we should be putting out a commercial if we didn't put it out yet. Did we put out the commercial yet?
No, it will go out tomorrow.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Madalena. Hope you're feeling better.
I'm feeling much better. Thank you.
Well, because she wants to go out on New Year's Eve. Of course she's feeling better, right?
Public class
No.
online.
Will we be back on our regular Wednesday schedule next week?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it public
well-
class online?
Yeah, everything's online. Yeah, it's online and it's on Thursdays an hour earlier than this at 10 o'clock our time. And everything is documented on YouTube as well, just like we do this one. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Robert,
you.
can you stay for a second
I can.
on Zoom? Okay.
Interstate 5 can wait a little bit longer.
Be careful the rain.
Oh.
We'll be careful. Okay, bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.